Okay, so we've done the pretty hard work of looking at ourselves and taking that personal inventory. But what do we do next? I mean, an inventory is really just a list until you actually do something with it. So now we're going to shift from just thinking about things to actually taking action. We'll explore the steps that turn all that self-discovery into real, lasting change. And that, right there, is the big question. It's one thing to see the roadblocks in our own lives, but it's something else entirely to actually remove them. This is where the real work gets started, the active part of casting out the things that have been holding us back. So here's the path we're going to follow. We'll start with the huge step of sharing our story, then move into that internal shift of becoming willing to change, and then tackle the very practical work of making amends. And finally, we'll see how this all fits together into a daily design for living that, well, it promises some pretty profound results. And that leads us straight to our first real action, the fifth step. Now, this is a big one, and yeah, it can be really tough. It's all about full disclosure. Admitting the exact nature of our flaws, not just to a higher power and to ourselves, but saying them out loud to another human being. This really gets to the core of it. We're taking what's all tangled up inside our heads and bringing it out into the open. See, the inventory helped us name the issues, but now the job is to actively get them out of there. And that's a job that, as we'll see, really can't be done alone. So why is this step of sharing our story so vital? I mean, why can't we just skip it? Well, the process we're looking at is very, very clear on this, and it lays out some powerful reasons why sharing with another person is an absolutely essential part of the journey. And this chart kind of breaks it down. If we try to do it all on our own, we can get stuck in our own heads. We can trick ourselves into thinking we've dealt with our ego and fear when really they're still running the show. But the act of saying it all out loud to another person, that forces a whole new level of honesty and humility. And strangely enough, it helps us become fearless. Yeah, and the warning here is pretty direct. Experience has shown that when people try to hold things back, keeping certain secrets to themselves, they often stumble. It's a sign that the house cleaning isn't quite finished, and that can lead right back to the same old destructive patterns. So, who do we tell? The guidance here is super practical. We need to find somebody we can trust. Absolutely. Someone who gets what we're trying to do, and, this is really important, someone who won't be harmed or upset by what we share. The goal is complete honesty with ourselves, but always, always being considerate of others. Okay, now we're moving into the next phase. After we've shared our story, the focus shifts. It goes inward to cultivating a real willingness to change, and then it goes outward to the hands-on work of repairing the damage from our past. There's this really subtle but powerful idea of willingness here in steps 6 and 7. It's a two-part deal. First, becoming entirely ready to have these defects removed. And then second, humbly asking for that to happen. And what if we're not ready? The advice is simple. We ask to become willing. And this quote really gets to the core of why we're doing all of this. This isn't just about self-improvement for its own sake. The whole point of this internal house cleaning is to become better people, so we can be of better service to others. This whole idea of service leads us right into the very practical, and let's be honest, often very challenging work of making amends in steps 8 and 9. But we're not just thrown into it without a map. There are some really clear principles to guide us through these tough but necessary conversations. And here's the basic playbook. Notice how the approach changes. With someone we resent, the focus is only on our side of the street, period. With money, it's all about facing that fear and making a plan. With our families, consideration is everything. And that last one is huge. We never, ever clean up our own mess by making a new one for someone else. This is such a vivid metaphor. The path of active alcoholism is often like a tornado just tearing through other people's lives. And when the storm finally stops, that's not the end of the story. Just like with a real tornado, there's a ton of rebuilding to do. And the person who caused all that damage has to be the one to lead the cleanup effort. So, once the major cleanup is done, how do we keep the house in order? That's what steps 10 and 11 are all about. They take this from being a one-time project and turn it into a sustainable daily practice, a real design for living. Step 10 gives us this simple tool for the end of each day, a nightly review. First, we just constructively look back. Then we ask ourselves those specific questions. Were we resentful, selfish, dishonest, or afraid? If the answer is yes and we owe someone an apology, we make it right. The idea isn't to beat ourselves up, but just to quickly correct our course and wipe the slate clean for the next day. And step 11 is kind of the morning version of that. Before the day really gets going, we pause. We look at the day ahead and ask for our thinking to be guided away from our own self-interest. We actually pray for freedom from self-will, and we ask how we can be helpful. It's a really simple practice that can set the tone for the entire day. So, after all this work, the inventory, the sharing, the amends, these new daily habits, what's the result? What's the payoff for really trying to follow this new way of life? Well, the program doesn't just give us the instructions, it also describes the profound promises that come from taking these actions. And there's a powerful assurance right here. Even though this can feel like a really long journey, we're told that we'll be amazed at the results before we're even halfway done, as long as we're thorough, as long as we're painstaking in our efforts. In total, there are 12 of these outcomes, often just called the promises, that are said to happen as a direct result of living this new way. Let's just touch on a few of the biggest ones. First, a promise of a totally new kind of freedom and happiness. This includes a completely different relationship with our past. Instead of regretting it or trying to shut the door on it, we'll actually be able to see it as part of our story, without being trapped by it anymore. We're also promised a deep sense of serenity and peace. That constant nagging feeling of uselessness and self-pity that might have driven so much of our old lives, it's said that it will simply disappear. And this one might be one of the most profound promises of all. The fear that can control so much of our lives, fear of other people, fear of economic insecurity, will leave us. And in its place, we'll find a new kind of intuition, an ability to handle situations that used to completely baffle us. And here's the final crucial point about all this. These aren't magic tricks. They aren't just empty words. They are presented as the natural, direct results of putting in the work. They are the outcomes that will always materialize as long as we consistently apply this new design for living.